Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may happen to be. This is BTC-TV, Channel 3. This is Scribbler with your host, Ben Wustenberg. And today I'm going to be doing a second reading from my new novella, Freedom House. It's Saturday in the AM. There were kids out just a little while ago, and they were screaming under the window, so, I can't stop that. And I don't want to. Kids are kids. Let them be kids. So if you hear shit in the background, that's just, Saturday morning. They don't have cartoons anymore. I don't understand it, but whatever. Anyways, this is going to be my second reading, and I hope you bear with me, and I hope I don't screw it up too much, because they're just cold readings right off the page. And here we go. Part 2. I left after that, going out to the car where Steve and Ashley were waiting for me. What can you say after a meeting like that? We'd both grown so far apart, too far to meet on anything even resembling solid ground. I still liked Kennedy, she didn't. She liked Nixon, I didn't. I still believed in civil rights. She believed they died with King, if she ever believed in them at all. Mama wasn't the only one saying civil rights would die without King to steer the course, or else Kennedy to push the bill through. And with the riots that crisscrossed the country after his death, it looked for a while that maybe they were right. I think people used King's death as an excuse to say that they'd waited long enough. It was time to take what was theirs by right. It was the militant mentality of the SNCC come to light. I think Kennedy was willing to face up to civil rights, but he wasn't able to do anything about it, at least not right away. His was a wait-and-see policy, just like everything else. Problem was, nobody wanted to wait that long to see. He would have been running against Goldwalder, and I'm pretty sure he would have won in a landslide. After he was dead, though, it was too late. The country has waited long enough. And when the black militant faction woke up, they wanted to burn things down, especially the government. As much as Mama might have hated Kennedy and Johnson, I think that was more in hindsight. When civil rights came to the forefront, when they organized the bus boycott and the sit-ins and the freedom riders, she was just as scornful as everyone else and said that no one would be able to solve it. And for a while, it looked like she might be right. I don't remember her hating Kennedy when he died, though. She mourned right along with the rest of the country. And I don't think that the irony was lost on her when Johnson finally ended up signing the Civil Rights Bill. The fact that he was a Texan and all, I mean. Steve reached into the back seat and popped the door open for me. I guess he was thinking I'd made some sort of headway with Mama, but I don't think it surprised either one of them to see that I hadn't. I asked Steve how it went, and Ashley said that they'd signed up most of the block as she backed out of the driveway. Steve said only a few doors were slammed in his face. It's a far cry from how it used to be, I thought. 10 years ago, we would have never been together in the same car with Steve. At least not in broad daylight. 2 white girls and a black man? This was still the white part of town. The part of town that made me look over my shoulder whenever we passed a pickup truck or a car that seemed to hesitate just not much before turning left or right. Once we crossed Miller's Road, things seemed to be different, I knew. The houses, the yards, the whole look of the place would remind you of some sharecropper's house you saw in a TV documentary about the South rising again. I never knew if they meant the Negro South or the white. Ashley asked me how it went with Mama, and I shook my head slowly. I sank into the back seat, grateful to be out of there, looking out at the perfectly trimmed hedges and manicured lawns of the neighbors' houses as we pulled out onto the street. They say you can never go back, and I suppose that's true to some extent. I looked at the old house and thought that it looked smaller than I'd remembered it, older and more worn down. Weather-beating would be the word, I guess. And as I remembered the last time I was here with such clarity, I closed my eyes against the memory, fighting the tears I expected to well up at any moment. I saw the tire swing in the backyard still hanging off the tree as we passed the burned-down church. No one's touched it in all these years, I thought, but I knew that was because Mama would have nothing to do with it, like it was her choice to make. The years haven't been kind to the churchyard either. The once manicured lawn was growing wild with weeds, and the worn-out patch of grass under the tire swing was full and green, as though Maggie and I never even played on it when we were kids. The bushes behind the house were gone, and there was a new development going up where the Edgerton place used to be. I'd learned about the development as soon as we approached the edge of town. At least 3 different billboards laid claim to the new Boonesboro in 3 different phases. I looked at the billboards as we drove by them, and they reminded me of all those billboards from when I was a kid. They even had the same wholesome 50s-looking families plastered on them, only now they were dressed in newer clothes, and I remembered thinking how nobody looks like that. I saw a corner of the small cemetery behind what was left of the church as we rounded the corner. The fence around it had fallen over, and I thought that would have never happened if Daddy was still alive. The grass had grown up between some of the older tombstones. Butler, McTavish, Miller, all 5 of them, Fielding, Owen, Barrows, and I wondered how I still knew the names. The birth and death years were still sitting at the edge of my memory, but I told myself I didn't want to play that game anymore. Maggie and I used to test ourselves, trying to match the dates with the names. The Millers were the hardest because there were 2 sets of twins in the family. The trick was that one set of twins was born over a period of 2 days, because their birth spanned the midnight hour. Daddy had taken the time to explain it to me one lazy afternoon. But no one had been buried in the cemetery since Root buried Daddy there 23 years ago. It seemed strange thinking how a cemetery could die like that, I thought, just like a whisper. Even stranger that a whole church's congregation would evaporate like that too. But with Daddy gone, Root and Reverend, it seemed that more than just hope had gone up in flames that night. Mama's from the old school, I told Steve and Ashley as soon as I'd settled into the back seat. She's from the old South, the deep South, Birmingham, where lynchings and beatings were the backbone of the country, I added a little laconically. It wasn't that she actually saw anyone being lynched or whipped, I explained, but she'd heard the sordid whispers about them from her father and his friends. They were things she'd overheard, I clarified. She's only ever witnessed 1 lynching in her life, 2 if you count Daddy's, and I don't think she ever really got over it. As near as I could tell from what she's told me over the years, Grandpa Rempel was a bona fide member of the clan, but it wasn't something she liked to talk about, and certainly nothing she ever bragged about, especially since she grew up to marry a Northern Baptist minister. She was born in a day and age when people towed the line like they were supposed to. You were told not to make waves, turn a blind eye, and never question your elders. Being a girl, it meant she used to sit out on the porch drinking mint juleps or homemade iced tea with Grandma, she told me. Those were probably the happiest times for her, though. She was real close to Grandma, I said. I didn't say it to either one of them in particular. I think I was just talking so that I could hear the sound of my own voice. I was trying to figure things out in my head, trying hard not to cry. I was trying to rationalize things because that's what I need to do when things don't go the way I planned. I'd been close to Mama once, both Maggie and I were, but too much has come between us since then. Did it take something as horrific as Daddy's dying to drive a wedge between all of us? She'd be wearing her Sunday best back in those days, and this was when they were living right smack dab in the middle of the Depression, I went on. They went to church every Sunday because they were good Christians, she told me. They had the ladies of the church auxiliary over for lunch 1 Sunday every month, and Grandma cooked most of the day then, even though Mama said they still had hired help. Mama would sing along with the radio, gospel songs and opera arias, but Mama said she mostly prayed to be forgiven for all her trespasses, all the while hoping Grandpa wouldn't take her outside and whip her for whatever made-up reason he might have had. "Spare the rod and spoil the child," I said softly. That's what her father used to tell her, and he lived and breathed that belief too, right to the bitter end. How she ever found the nerve to go up against her father, I'll never know. Maybe the war coming when it did saved her, because that's when she met Daddy, and shortly after that, they were married. And then I was born. There you go. That's it. A long, hard ride. I'm sorry. I'm long-winded. I can't help myself. But I love the story, so that's just the way it goes. Anyways, that's all there is for today. I will see you next week. Hopefully everything goes fine with the bathroom. They're not finished with the renos yet. They're quite nice though. They even have a new door. It's like, wow, it really works. So I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So all I have to say now is arrivederci.